My name is Daniel Mercer, and the first lie of that day did not come from my wife. It came from the receptionist. She said it with a polished little smile, like she was pointing me toward the restroom. The partner's husband was just here with her. Not even who are you here to see, just that. The partner's husband was just here with her. Then she looked at me like I was the extra man. I was still holding Elise's lunch in a brown paper bag, still wearing the smile I drove there with. Still stupid enough to think surprising my wife at work was the kind of thing marriage could still be made of. That smile died in her lobby. The place looked exactly like the kind of office that charged people by the minute to be intimidated. Dark wood walls, glass doors, framed awards, a silver logo behind the desk, hawthorn, and veil. Everything expensive, everything controlled, everything already acting like I did not belong there. I should explain something. I did not come to that office because I suspected my wife was cheating. I came because I missed her. Dear viewers, before we continue this story, do us a favor by liking this video, comment where you are watching from. And if this is your first time, please do subscribe and turn on your notification for more revenge stories, cause it encourages us to do more stories like this. Now, back to our story. That morning had started with one of those small moments that tricks you into believing a marriage is still alive just because it still knows how to imitate itself. I woke before sunrise and found Elise already dressed in the bathroom mirror, putting in earrings, navy skirt, white silk blouse, hair pinned up, calm face, sharp lipstick. She looked like she was heading into battle and expected to win. I stood in the doorway and said it should be illegal to look that expensive before 6 in the morning. She laughed a little. Flattery this early? What do you want? I want my wife to admit she married down. She turned toward me and smiled. Daniel, I absolutely married down. You own 4 hoodies and think one of them counts as formal wear. I put a hand to my chest. This is abuse. She brushed past me and kissed my cheek on the way out. Be dramatic later. I'm already behind. That kiss was quick, but it was real. For 1 second, it felt like us again. Not the tired version. Not the version that passed each other in hallways and mostly talked through calendar alerts and rescheduled dinners. The old version. I followed her into the kitchen while she packed files into her leather tote. You eating lunch today? I asked, or just inhaling caffeine in fear. No promises. I'm serious. I know. She checked her watch. Baxter meeting, then strategy, then I'm buried until 6. You said that yesterday. And was I wrong? No, I said. I just don't enjoy being right this often. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for one moment I thought she might slow down. Sit. Say something honest. Admit we had been thinning out for months. Instead, she picked up her keys. We'll do dinner this weekend. You said that last weekend. This time I'll make it happen. I smiled because I wanted to believe her. You promise? She gave me that half smile she used when she wanted grace she had not earned yet. I promise. Then she was gone. The house felt too quiet after she left. It had been like that a lot lately. We had not broken all at once. We had thinned out. Her phone started living face down. Her passcode changed after years of staying the same. Busy became the answer to every question. The names in her life disappeared too. Coworkers became someone from work. Cases became just work. Whole parts of her day turned into sealed rooms I was not invited into. I told myself it was a season because people in trouble always do. Seasons sound temporary. Around 11:30, I opened the fridge and saw the chicken pesto sandwich I had made for her still sitting there untouched. I smiled. This, I thought, was the kind of thing marriage could still be saved with. Not grand gestures, not anniversary flowers. Just noticing the thing nobody else noticed and taking care of it because you love the person. So I packed the sandwich, a lemon yogurt, the kettle chips she liked but pretended were too salty, and 1 square of dark chocolate she hid behind the oatmeal like I did not know exactly where it was. Then I wrote a note. Thought you might forget lunch. Don't bill anyone while hungry. Love, your underdressed husband. I folded the note and tucked it into the bag. On the drive downtown, I actually felt happy. I played old songs from our early dating years, sat in traffic, smiling like an idiot. Imagine her rolling her eyes when she saw me, then laughing, then maybe stealing 20 minutes to eat with me downstairs. That was all I wanted. 20 minutes with my own wife. When I got to the building, I parked in the visitor garage and took the elevator up to the lobby. Hawthorne and Vale occupied 3 floors of one of those polished towers, where everyone either looked rich or looked like they worked for someone richer. I was wearing dark jeans, boots, and a charcoal jacket over a black Henley. Clean, normal, not law firm fancy, but I was not there to impress anybody. I was bringing lunch to my wife. The receptionist looked up the moment I approached. Early 30s, blonde bob, cream blouse, perfect posture. The kind of face that had turned away 10 people before noon and would sleep just fine afterward. Yes? Hi, I said. I'm here for Elise Mercer. Just wanted to drop off her lunch. She looked at me for one beat too long. Then her eyes traveled from my boots to my face and back again. Then she said it. Oh, the partner's husband was just here with her. I blinked. Sorry? She gave me a light, impatient smile. Mrs. Mercer is occupied. I stood there, still holding the bag. I'm her husband. Something flickered across her face. Not confusion, recognition. But not the kind that made anything better. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly into it, listened, then hung up. Mrs. Mercer is in a confidential meeting, she said. You can leave that here. I did not move. I said, who was just here? I'm sorry? You said the partner's husband was just here with her. Who did you mean? Her smile vanished. Sir, I can't discuss internal matters. Internal matters? I let out a small laugh. My wife is an internal matter now? You can leave the lunch if you'd like. That was when I noticed 2 things at the same time. She had not asked my name once. And she was not acting like someone who had made a simple mistake. She was acting like someone trying to clean one up. I stepped slightly to the side and looked past her desk toward the frosted security doors. Then I'll wait. Her shoulders stiffened. That won't be possible. I'm sure it will. Sir, I'm not leaving, I said, still calm. I drove down here to surprise my wife. Apparently, I've walked into a very strange conversation. So I'm going to sit down right over there, and either my wife explains it to me or someone else does. Her face tightened. That was when suspicion stopped being insecurity and became evidence. I walked to the waiting area and sat in one of the gray leather chairs facing the desk. The lobby was cold in the way expensive places are cold on purpose. Not uncomfortable, just unfriendly. People moved through it in controlled little bursts. Associates in sharp suits. Assistants carrying folders. A man in a blue tie laughing too loudly into a headset. And every now and then someone glanced at me. Just for a second. Then looked away. If enough strangers look at you like the last person to know, eventually you start wondering if that is exactly what you are. I texted Elise. Hey, I'm downstairs in your lobby with lunch. Thought I'd surprise you. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. That was not normal. Elise might ignore a casual text during the day, but if I called twice, she usually answered or at least sent. In meeting. Call you soon. I tried again. Voicemail. Now the whole lobby felt like a room where everyone knew the script except me. A man in a navy suit came off the elevator, leaned toward the receptionist, murmured something, then glanced over his shoulder at me. She gave him the smallest shake of her head. He looked away and kept walking. That tiny exchange landed hard, because it was the look people give when there is a scene they hope does not spread. Apparently, I was the scene. I called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. Daniel, if this is about fantasy basketball, I'm working. It's not. He went quiet immediately. What happened? I'm at Elise's office. Okay, I brought her lunch. Very husbandly. The receptionist just told me the partner's husband was just here. With her. Silence. Then, say that again? I repeated it. Marcus exhaled slowly. Maybe she meant a law partner. Like another partner's husband. She said it while looking at me like I was a lost delivery guy. That's bad. Yeah, what are you doing? Sitting in the lobby. A pause. Then he said, good, don't leave. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the security doors. You already think what I think. I think that sentence doesn't come out of nowhere. There've been things. What things? Once I started, the list came too easily. Late nights, phone face down, distance, everything is busy. Everybody is someone from work. How long? Months. And you said nothing? I said work was hard. Daniel, I know. He let out a breath. All right, stay calm. Do not become the loud husband in a law office lobby. I'm calm. You don't sound calm. I'm calm enough. That's not the same thing. Then the security door clicked. My eyes snapped up. A man stepped through first. Tall, mid-40s, silver at the temples, expensive navy suit, the kind of face that had spent years being listened to without raising its voice. He was buttoning his jacket as he walked, speaking over his shoulder to someone behind him. Then Elise came through after him, holding a red file against her chest. She was smiling, a soft one, a private one. For 1 second, before she saw me, she looked at ease. I had not seen that face turn toward me in months. Then her eyes landed on me. Her whole body changed. Not dramatically, that was the worst part. She did not light up in surprise, did not rush over, did not say, Daniel, what are you doing here? She froze for one heartbeat. And in that heartbeat, I saw it. Calculation, fear, being caught. The man beside her followed her gaze to me, then to the lunch bag, then back to me. He did not look confused either. He looked annoyed, like I had arrived early to a version of my own life he was already rehearsing. Marcus was still in my ear. Daniel? I stood up slowly. Elise moved first. Daniel, she said too fast, too bright. What are you doing here? I looked at her, then at him, then back at her. And I said quietly, I brought lunch for my wife. Nobody spoke. The receptionist stopped typing. The lobby held its breath. Then the man straightened his cuff, gave me a thin smile, and said, Ah, so you're Daniel. That sentence hit harder than any confession could have, because of how he knew it. Like the name of a problem, like the name of a man already discussed in private. I lowered the phone from my ear, but kept the line open. I wanted a witness. Elise stepped toward me. Daniel, can we not do this here? I laughed once. Dry, ugly. Do what here? This conversation. I lifted the lunch bag slightly. You mean the conversation where I came to bring my wife lunch and got told her husband was already here? The man finally spoke. Maybe we should take this somewhere private. His voice was deep and polished, the kind judges probably liked. I hated it immediately. I looked at him. You don't get to decide where I take this. Elise stepped in fast. Daniel, please. There was fear in her voice now. Fear of exposure. Fear of consequences. Fear of the wrong people hearing the wrong version too early. That fear told me more than any confession could have. I looked at her and said, Who is he? She hesitated. This is Richard Vale. Vale, as in Hawthorne and Vale. So this was not some random attorney. This was one of the kings of the place. I nodded once. And why does Richard Vale know my name before I've ever met him? She said nothing. Richard answered instead. Because your wife speaks highly of you. I smiled because the alternative was swinging at him. Does she? That before or after you sent the front desk the wrong husband? For the first time, he glanced at the receptionist. Small mistake, but a mistake. That glance told me the line had not been random. Maybe habit, maybe repetition, maybe instruction. Either way, it had happened before. Elise took another step toward me. Daniel, please come with me. No. Her eyes widened. What? No conference room, no hallway, no version of this where the two of you get to tell me I misunderstood what I just heard. Her jaw tightened. That was the first time she looked angry instead of scared. Good. Anger had shape. Fear could still hide. Daniel, she said, voice low, you are making a scene. No, I said. I walked into one. The elevator opened behind me. 3 more people stepped out and went instantly quiet when they picked up the tension in the lobby. Nobody came closer. Nobody left either. Office people are all the same. They mind their business by memorizing it. I looked at Richard. So let me ask this simply. Why did your receptionist think you were my wife's husband? I think she misspoke, he said. No, she didn't. Then she made an assumption. Based on what? He did not answer. I turned to Elise. Based on what? She drew in a breath. Daniel, this is not what you think. There it was, the oldest sentence in the world. Not I'm sorry, not let me explain, not you deserved better. Just that stale little line people use when the truth is still deciding how expensive it wants to be. I nodded slowly. Then tell me what it is. She searched for words. Because there were too many and all of them were dangerous. Finally, she said, Richard and I have been working very closely on the Baxter case. That line sounds expensive, I said. Try again. Her cheeks flushed. Don't do that. Do what? Twist everything. I stared at her. I'm standing in your office lobby after your receptionist announced another husband. I'm not the one twisting anything. Richard stepped in. Mr. Mercer, don't. I looked straight at him. Don't say my name like we know each other. We don't. His face lost a little smoothness. Good. I turned back to Elise. Has this happened before? A few times, she said too fast. I almost did not recognize the sound that came out of me. Half laugh, half disbelief. A few times? Daniel, no. Say it again. I looked around the lobby. A few times people here thought your law partner was your husband. Elise snapped. He is not my boss. That was what she corrected. I stared at her and felt something cold slide into place inside me. You care about the weirdest details. That shut her up. I should tell you something about Elise. She was not careless. That woman remembered birthdays, deadlines, filing dates, bill payments, and exact wording from arguments 6 months old. She did not accidentally let the same false assumption happen over and over, not unless correcting it cost her something she did not want to lose. I said, how many times? I don't know. How many? I said, I don't know. Was it easier, I asked, to let them think it? Her head snapped up. That's unfair. Is it false? She did not answer. Silence can be louder than confession. I asked the question I had been trying not to ask. Are you sleeping with him? The receptionist froze. Someone near the elevator turned all the way around. Richard's jaw tightened. Elise stared at me like I had slapped her. How dare you ask me that in public? The answer should have come before the outrage. That was all I needed. I nodded once. Got it. Daniel, no, you do not get it. Then answer. She took a breath like she was trying not to shout. My personal life is not up for discussion in the lobby. There it was again. Not denial, just refusal. I looked at Richard. And yours? He said nothing. I held up my left hand so they could both see the wedding band. Then I pointed at his. I'm married to her. You're married to somebody too, I'm guessing. His face stayed controlled, but his eyes changed. Tiny shift. Enough. Elise whispered, Daniel, stop. I looked at her and my voice got softer. That seemed to scare her more than anger. Do you know what's sick? I asked. I came down here with your favorite lunch because I thought maybe we had forgotten how to be us. I was trying to be your husband. And I walk in here to find out your office has been auditioning somebody else for the part. Her face cracked a little then. Too late. I set the lunch bag down on the reception desk. The note inside it suddenly felt humiliating. I wanted the whole day back. Instead, I said, you should eat. Looks like you've had company. Then I turned and walked toward the elevator. Behind me, Elise called my name. I kept walking. She caught up just before the doors opened and grabbed my arm. Not hard, just enough to stop me. Please don't leave like this. I looked down at her hand on me, then up at her face. For 1 second, I could still see the woman I married in there. The woman who once cried on our wedding night because she said nobody had ever made her feel safe before. The woman who once danced with me in our kitchen during a power outage because the whole house was lit by candles and phone flashlights. That memory hurt more than the betrayal. Because it reminded me this was not a story. This was my actual life being torn open in business attire. I gently removed her hand. How else should I leave? Tears gathered in her eyes, but they did not fall. She was too controlled for that. Come home tonight, she said. I stared at her. Home. Yes. You mean the house where I live? The one your coworkers probably think belongs to some underdressed hobby husband you mentioned for tax purposes? Her face crumpled for 1 second, then hardened again. That is not fair. Neither is this. The elevator opened. I stepped inside. She did not follow. The doors started to close, and just before they met, she said the one sentence I will never forget. "Daniel, there are things you don't understand. The doors shut between us." I stood there alone in the mirrored elevator, staring at my own face like I was meeting a stranger. People say betrayal feels like being stabbed. That is not how it felt. It felt like being edited out. By the time I got to the garage, Marcus was practically shouting through the phone. "What happened? Are you alive? Why do you sound like a man planning a felony?" "I'm fine." "No, you are not." I got into the car, shut the door, and sat there with both hands on the wheel. Marcus waited. He knew me well enough not to rush the silence. Finally, I said, "She didn't deny it." His voice dropped. "Daniel." She didn't deny anything. She just kept saying I didn't understand. "What about the guy?" "Partner, Richard Vale." A pause. "Vale as in Hawthorne and Vale?" "Yeah, that's ugly. I think the whole office knows." He was quiet for a second. "Then this may be bigger than an affair." That sentence stayed in the car. Bigger than an affair. I started the engine but did not pull out. Instead, I looked up just in time to see something that stopped me cold. There was a private side exit near the valet lane. A black sedan idled at the curb. A man stood by the rear passenger door. And 30 seconds later, Elise came out through that side exit with Richard right behind her. Not close enough for a movie. No kiss, no hand-holding, nothing easy. Just close enough to prove they were leaving through a different door than everybody else. Together enough to hide. My pulse slowed instead of rising. That was when I knew I had crossed into dangerous calm. Because anger makes noise, real damage gets quiet. Marcus was still talking, but his voice sounded far away. "Daniel? Daniel, what's happening?" I watched as Richard opened the rear door for Elise. Not the front passenger seat, the back. Like this was not some accidental car share after a meeting. Like this had happened before. I swallowed and said softly, "I think my wife is leaving work with him. Don't follow them." I did not answer. "Daniel." The sedan pulled away from the curb. I eased into traffic behind it. Marcus cursed under his breath. Then he said, "Okay, if you're going to be stupid, be smart stupid. Keep distance. Share your location. And do not confront them alone." My eyes stayed on the black sedan 2 cars ahead. "I just want to know where my wife goes when she's not being my wife." 3 blocks later, the sedan slipped into the underground garage of a luxury residential tower I knew for a fact was not our home. That was when the whole day turned darker. This was not random. This was routine. People do not glide into secret places that smoothly on their first visit. I drove another half block and pulled over beneath a row of dead-looking trees. My hand stayed on the steering wheel. I stared through the windshield at the building across the street. Tall glass front. Brass trim. Quiet entrance. Private valet lane. No revolving tourist traffic. No families dragging luggage. No hotel chaos. This was residential. Luxury residential. My wife had not just left work with him. She had gone somewhere prepared. Marcus said, "Go home." I can't. Yes, you can. No. Because if I go home right now, all I have is what I think. And what I think is already bad enough. You have enough. Not for me. The truth was uglier than that. Some pathetic little part of me was still trying to rescue her. Still trying to force all this into some shape I could survive. Maybe he kept a unit there for clients. Maybe there was a meeting. Maybe there was some rich person explanation that was still terrible, just not fatal. I hated that hope, but it was there. "I need to know," I said. Marcus exhaled. "Then do not improvise. Stay in the car. Text me the address." I sent it. Then I got out anyway. The cold hit harder than I expected. I crossed the street slowly and stopped short of the entrance. A doorman stood beneath the awning in a dark coat and gloves, watching the street with the bored alertness of a man paid to notice trouble before trouble spoke. There was a resident access panel beside the door. No leasing banners, no hotel signs, definitely residential. I walked half a block trying to think. There were only so many clean explanations left, and every one of them required more mercy than the facts deserved. My phone buzzed. Elise calling. Marcus said, "Don't answer." I answered. "Where are you?" She asked immediately. No hello, no how are you, no Daniel please, just that. I leaned against the cold stone wall of a closed storefront and looked back toward the building. Interesting question, Daniel. Why? Because I need to talk to you. From where? Silence. Then, please don't do this. I laughed softly. Do what? Ask where my wife is while she's disappearing into private buildings with another man? You are making assumptions. Then fix them. More silence. I'm in a meeting, she said. No, you're not. Yes, I am. With Richard Vale? A pause. Then, Daniel, go home. There it was again. Not denial. Never denial. Just instructions. Leave the lunch. Take this private. Come home tonight. Go home. Orders, no truth. I said, if I came upstairs right now, what would I find? Her breathing changed. That was enough to tell me I had aimed near something real. You need to stop, she said. I'll take that as no. Daniel, I asked you in the lobby if you were sleeping with him. You didn't answer. I asked if your office thinks he's your husband. You admitted it has happened before. Now you vanish with him into a private residential building and want me to go home like a dog that wandered into the wrong room? My voice stayed low. That seemed to upset her more than if I had shouted, because calm meant I was thinking. Finally, she said, this is bigger than what you think. That sentence again. I closed my eyes. You keep saying that like it helps. I'm trying to protect you. I laughed so hard that time it almost hurt. Protect me? Yes. By lying to me? No. By letting your office think another man is your husband? Daniel, lower your voice. I looked around the empty sidewalk. Nobody's here. That's not what I mean. I understood then. She was not afraid of strangers hearing. She was afraid of him hearing. I asked quietly, are you with him right now? No answer. That answer was enough. Put him on the phone. What? Put him on the phone. Absolutely not. Then tell me the truth yourself. Her voice hardened. You need to trust me for one more day. I went completely still. One more day, I repeated. Yes, that was not affair language. That was deadline language. Paperwork language, damage control language. Something was moving, and she needed me blind until it was done. I said, why one more day? Because after tomorrow, this will make sense. My mouth went dry. Tomorrow what? A filing? A vote? An announcement? Elise, I said, what happens tomorrow? She did not answer. Instead, she said, for once, just listen to me. For once, those words lit something in me. For once? I repeated, don't twist my words. Those were your exact words. She changed tactics. Her voice softened. You're upset. I understand that. No, you don't. I do. You do not get to say that from wherever you are. Daniel, I believed you. That came out before I could stop it. Small, simple, true. There was a long pause. Then, very quietly, she said, I know, that was somehow worse than everything else. No defense. No correction. Just that. I hung up. Marcus said, what did she say? She said I need to trust her for one more day. He went silent. Then, that's bad. Yeah, that sounds like legal strategy. That was exactly what it sounded like. Who handles your finances? He asked. I frowned. What? Your accounts? Taxes? Joint stuff? Who handles most of it? Elise does. That is not comforting. No, it isn't. Can you access everything? Yes. I mean, mostly. Daniel. I swallowed. Mostly. He cursed. He did not curse often. That got my full attention. Go home, he said. Now. Check every account, every document, mortgage, cards, savings, anything she touches. You think this is about money? I think rich lawyers don't risk public mess for nothing. Stop thinking like a hurt husband for 10 minutes and start thinking like somebody about to get professionally buried. That hit because it felt possible. I turned and walked fast back to my car. The drive home felt shorter than it should have, or maybe my brain was moving too fast to register streets. I got inside the townhouse and the silence hit me in the face. Her scarf was still on the hook by the door. One heel sat half-turned under the entry bench because she always kicked them off carelessly when she was tired. A mug with her lipstick stain was still in the sink from that morning. That almost broke me, because the ugliest betrayals do not happen in empty houses. They happen in houses still full of ordinary proof. I went straight to the office at the back of the house and opened my laptop. Marcus stayed on speaker. Start with banking. I logged in, checking looked normal, savings I stopped. What? There's less. How much less? I stared at the screen. 40,000. Marcus went very still. Missing? Transferred. When? Last 6 weeks. To where? There they were. Several transfers. Clean amounts. Never huge enough to scream. Just quiet enough to pass if nobody was paying close attention. 15,000, 8,000, 6,000, 11,000. The descriptions looked formal, which made them worse. H&V Escrow Consulting. Retainer Reserve. Temporary Settlement Holding. Formal names are the best hiding places. They sound honest until you read them twice. What are those? Marcus asked. I don't know. You do know? No. I literally don't know. I've never seen them before. Click details. I did. Authorized through shared credentials. No alerts, no flags, no explanations. Quiet, deliberate. All right, Marcus said. Keep going. Mortgage looked normal. Property tax account, normal. Insurance, normal. Then I opened our joint credit card history. I stopped again. What now? She's been spending. On what? Private dining. Car services. Flowers I never saw. A furniture store downtown. Check the store. I clicked. No delivery address in the summary, but there was an invoice number. I copied it. Then I opened our shared cloud drive. Tax records, house repairs, insurance, PDFs, travel documents. Everything looked ordinary until I saw a folder I did not recognize. RV Personal. I froze. Marcus said, What? There's a folder. What's in it? I clicked. At first, I thought I had opened the wrong thing. PDFs, scanned forms, property documents, a draft purchase agreement, a design board for a condo renovation, appliance selections, furniture notes, and at the top, 12B Final Occupancy Plan. The address matched the building I had just followed them to. My hand slipped off the mouse. Marcus's voice sharpened. Daniel, stay with me. I opened the file. Floor plan, 2 bedrooms, high-rise view, master suite, study, guest room. Then under planned resident use, primary occupant, E. Mercer, secondary access and occupancy. R. Vale. I stopped breathing. Not us, not Daniel and Elise Mercer, just her. With him. I clicked deeper into the folder. There were short email printouts too, practical ones, coded enough to hide on a quick glance, clear enough once you knew what you were looking at. Need it ready before announcement. She can't move anything obvious until after Thursday. Use my assistant, not firm channels. Daniel must not see drafts yet. That line landed like a brick to the throat. Affairs are messy. This was organized. I stood up so fast, my chair rolled backward. I made it to the kitchen sink and braced both hands against the counter. Not because I was going to be sick, because I finally understood the shape of the trap, the late nights, the quiet transfers, the hidden residents, the office whispers, the one more day. Tomorrow was Thursday. Marcus was practically shouting, "Read me exactly what you found." I forced myself back to the desk and read everything out loud. When I finished, he said very carefully, "You need a lawyer. My wife is a lawyer. Then you need a better one." I sat back down. My whole body felt cold from the inside out. I opened another PDF lower in the folder. Prepared statement, internal partnership, transition. I frowned and opened it. My blood left my face. This was not just about Richard, and it was not just about Elise. It was about a public promotion, a named partner announcement. At the bottom, in internal notes, one line had been highlighted for speaking points. To preserve optics, personal transition should remain confidential until marital dissolution filing is timestamped. I read it twice, then 3 times. Marital dissolution, timestamped. Not just a breakup, a scheduled divorce, a staged sequence. My hands started shaking. "They're timing it," Marcus said after I read the line aloud. "What?" "They're staging the relationship, the promotion, and the divorce, so it lands in the right order." Promotion first, marriage crack second, public story last. I stared at the screen. Then why keep me in the dark? So you don't interfere. Of course, if I knew early, I could move money, call lawyers, expose timing, challenge filings, blow up optics, force a different story. But if I stayed confused and trusting, I would be easier to step over. I whispered. She was waiting to serve me. Marcus did not answer. He did not need to. I looked again at the line. Daniel must not see drafts yet, just a variable to manage. I stood up so fast I grabbed my keys without thinking. Marcus caught it immediately. No, they're in that building. No, she's in his condo. You do not go there. I want to look her in the face. And say what? That you found the file? Great. Then they panic, wipe everything, and you become the unstable husband who harassed a partner. I stopped, because he was right. Because I hated that he was right. Because suddenly the whole day rearranged itself. The receptionist, the careful language, the side exit, the one more day speech. The prepared statement. They were not just lying, they were structuring. This was a machine, and I had almost walked directly into the part where it crushed me and called it procedure. Marcus lowered his voice. Copy everything. Every file, every screenshot, every statement. Send it to a private email she cannot access. I nodded, even though he could not see me. Okay, then call a lawyer. Tonight. Before I could sit back down, the doorbell rang. One hard press, then another. I froze. Marcus said, "Who is that?" I walked into the hallway and looked through the side window toward the porch. My blood turned to ice. Standing outside my front door were two men. A courier holding a flat document envelope. And Richard Vale, standing on my porch in a dark coat like he belonged in the next scene of my life. The bell rang again. Then my phone lit up with a text from Elise. Please don't make this harder than it already is. I stared at it. Then back at the porch. Tomorrow had not been their real deadline. I had forced their hand, which meant whatever came next, they had not planned to do it gently. For a few seconds, I did not move. I just stood there in my own hallway, staring at two men on my porch. One held legal papers. The other wore confidence like a second coat. Richard stood there calm as winter, like bringing divorce papers to another man's home at night was a reasonable administrative task. Marcus's voice came through the phone. Daniel, it's him. Who, Richard? At your house? With a courier. Marcus cursed hard. Do not open that door like an idiot. It's my house. I know whose house it is. I'm saying don't get baited into some emotional porch disaster. That was the thing. Richard was not there to deliver papers. Sending a courier was legal. Coming with him was theater. He was there to watch the blast, to measure damage, to see what kind of husband I turned into under pressure. I saved the porch camera footage to cloud backup, started a screen recording on my phone, and then opened the door halfway. The courier stepped forward first. Daniel Mercer? Depends who's asking. I have documents requiring personal service. Richard gave me a solemn nod like we were two men at a funeral. I wanted to throw him down my porch steps. Instead, I said, and why are you here? The courier said, to witness delivery. I looked at Richard. And you? His voice stayed smooth. To make sure this doesn't become more painful than it has to. That sentence nearly knocked the breath out of me with its arrogance. More painful? I repeated. You came to my front door with divorce papers and a supervision plan. His expression stayed carefully neutral. I'm here because Elise asked me to make sure you receive them safely, as if the danger here was a paper cut. As if the violence had not already happened months ago in private rooms and hidden folders. I looked down at the envelope but did not take it. Is my wife in the car? No, Richard said. Of course not. She has sent the man she was building her new life with to deliver the end of the old one. Cowardly, strategic, efficient, very Elise. Tell her to come do her own work, I said. Richard's jaw moved once. This is already difficult. For who? He did not answer. The courier shifted, uncomfortable now. Sir, I just need confirmation the documents were offered. I looked at him then, really looked at him. Wrong porch, wrong night. This has nothing to do with you, I said. He nodded gratefully. I took the envelope. Funny how years can fit into so little paper. The courier made his note and backed away quickly, leaving just me and Richard. 2 husbands on 1 porch, only one of us still pretending to be civilized. I held up the envelope between us. You really came here for this. Things are moving quickly, he said. There it was again. Careful language. No sorry, no shame, just logistics. Interesting, I said. You and Elise used the same script. His eyes narrowed. You're angry. That observation alone is proof you're not as smart as people think. He ignored that. Elise wanted to handle this with dignity. I took one slow step closer. Not enough to threaten, enough to make him feel me there. She handled it in your condo. That landed. Tiny shift in the eyes, tiny pause in the breathing. He recovered fast, but not fast enough. Good. I kept my voice low. I followed you. Now his face changed for real. Not much, but enough. You shouldn't have done that, he said. Again, not denial, just instruction. Nobody denied anything anymore. They only told me what I should have done. I nodded. Interesting. Nobody lies cleanly this late. They just start managing. Daniel, no. You don't say my name like we know each other. You know a version of me you were fed. That's all. For the first time, steel entered his voice. You need to think very carefully about what happens next. That made me smile, because there was at last the threat underneath the silk. I already am. He glanced at the envelope in my hand. Read the papers and let counsel handle it. Counsel. Not marriage, not truth. Counsel. He really thought this was a file now, a contained event. He had no idea how much I had already seen. So I asked, does your wife know you're here? That one hit deeper than I expected. He did not answer immediately. Good, so the man bled somewhere. I leaned in just enough for only him to hear me clearly. Because if she doesn't, then this isn't love, it's appetite. And men like you always think appetite is the same thing until their own house catches fire. His eyes went flat. Not angry, dangerously blank. There are professional consequences, he said, for reckless accusations. There it was, the real language, professional consequences. You mean for me? I mean for everyone. No, I said. Men like you never mean everyone. A car passed at the end of the block. Somewhere 2 houses down, a dog barked once and stopped. Then Richard softened his voice. Daniel, I'm trying to prevent a public collapse. For the firm, for Elise. I laughed. No, you're trying to preserve the version of Elise that still benefits you. That struck closer than he liked. He looked away briefly toward the street, and that was when I saw it. Not guilt, not remorse, annoyance. This man was not standing on my porch because love had made him reckless. He was here because the sequence had broken, the rollout had broken. And now he was managing damage. I asked, she's getting named partner tomorrow, isn't she? His eyes snapped back to mine. That was all I needed. He had not known how much I knew. Now he did. Where did you hear that? He asked. I tilted my head. You just answered my question. A pause. Then another. Finally, he said, you are in dangerous territory. The 3rd threat in 2 minutes. You should probably bill me. I'm not threatening you. You lawyers always say that right before the threat arrives. He flattened his mouth. I shook the envelope once. Did she file already? He did not answer. I smiled. Another answer. He glanced toward the curb where the courier's car had disappeared, then back at me. This can still be resolved with minimal harm. That sentence lit something clean and brutal in me. Minimal harm. I looked past him at my dark street. At the porch light Elise made me replace last autumn because she said the old one made the house look tired. At the potted plant by the door she never remembered to water. At the life I had been inside all these years. Then I looked back at him. You entered my marriage, I said quietly. You entered my finances, you entered my front porch, and now you're talking to me about minimal harm? He held my gaze. Big mistake. Because men like him are used to eye contact meaning balance, negotiation, equal force. He did not understand what he was looking at. He was looking at the exact moment a decent man stops trying to be understood. I stepped back and started to close the door. He said, read page 6 first. My hand stopped. I looked at him through the narrowing gap. Why page 6? Because it concerns the house. Then he turned and walked down my steps before I could say anything else. Just like that. Not rushed, not dramatic, confident enough to leave a bomb and trust the sound it made. I locked the door, then locked it again even though it was already locked. Marcus was shouting, "Daniel, I'm here. What happened?" "He told me to read page 6 first." Marcus went quiet. "Open it." I did. Inside were dissolution papers, property notices, and temporary financial restraints. I flipped fast. Page 1, page 2, page 3. Legal language so cold it did not feel human. Petitioner, Elise Mercer. Respondent, Daniel Mercer. Temporary restrictions on asset movement. Temporary use requests. Occupancy request. Then page 6. I stopped breathing again. Richard had been right. Page 6 was about the house. According to the filing, Elise was requesting exclusive temporary occupancy of the marital home on grounds that my recent emotional volatility made cohabitation unstable. I read it twice. Then a third time, because I understood it perfectly and still could not believe it. She was trying to keep the house, not later. Now, and in the supporting notes, there was a line that made my skin crawl. Respondent has recently exhibited impulsive presence at petitioner's workplace, causing concern regarding discretion and professional safety. I laughed. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the wall. Marcus said my name 3 times before I could answer. Finally, I managed. "They're building a record." "What?" "She's using today, the office, the lunch, me showing up, all of it. Read it exactly." I did. He cursed. "Screenshots. Now." I took photos of every page and sent them to a new private email account I created on the spot. Then I kept reading. More poison. She was also requesting an emergency review of shared business exposure because of unclear financial boundaries tied to my print shop. That turned me cold all over. Not random, targeted. She knew exactly where to create smoke if she wanted leverage. "She's coming after the business too," I said. "That's the point," Marcus said. "House, assets, narrative. They want you defensive and messy." I kept reading. Then I found the signature block, prepared by counsel, not Richard, another family law attorney at a top firm. But below that, in routing notes copied into the packet by accident or arrogance, I saw it. Reviewed for employment and exposure considerations by R. Vale. I sat down hard on the stairs. There it was in plain language. He had touched the filing. Not officially, maybe, but enough. Enough to help shape the attack. Enough to help protect his own position. Enough to be inside it. He reviewed it, I said. "Who?" "Richard." A pause. Then Marcus said, "Good." I frowned. "Good?" "Yes. Because if you can prove your wife's affair partner participated in structuring the divorce narrative to protect his own professional interests, that's leverage. Leverage." That word should have felt ugly. Instead, it felt like oxygen. Because until that moment, I had felt hunted. Now, for the first time all day, I saw shape. Not hope, not yet. But shape. A way to hit back without losing my mind. I spread the papers out on the kitchen table and kept going line by line. The deeper I looked, the uglier it got. References to protecting Elise's professional continuity. Requests that all communication go through counsel. Suggested restrictions on discussing the matter with firm employees. And buried in the temporary notes, a proposed date for formal filing stamp, tomorrow morning. Marcus had guessed exactly right. Promotion first, then legal distance, then quiet move into the condo, then public reinvention. I looked at the pages until they stopped being words and started becoming motives. That was when my phone buzzed again. Elise, a text. "Please don't call anyone connected to the firm tonight. You could make this much worse for yourself." I stared at it, then at the line about my emotional volatility, then at the occupancy request, then at the condo plan, then at Richard standing on my porch like he could supervise my collapse. For the first time since the receptionist looked me up and down in that lobby, I was not hurt first. I was angry first, clear angry, useful angry. I said, "She still thinks I'm the man she can get ahead of." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Are you?" I looked at the papers one more time, Then I folded them carefully, not because I respected them, because I wanted every line preserved, every lie, every polished little cut. No, I said. Good. I opened a new browser tab and typed the name of the toughest divorce attorney in the city, Evelyn Sloan. I remembered Elise mentioning her once over dinner and laughing. If I ever go to war in family court, she had said, I want Sloan on my side, not across from me. All right, I thought, let's give you what you feared. I called the emergency number. A calm female voice answered after 2 rings. Emergency line from Miss Sloan. My name is Daniel Mercer, I said. I need help tonight. I gave her facts, name, address, divorce papers served tonight, hidden asset movement, possible affair with professional overlap, evidence of timing, possible unauthorized access risk. The woman on the line became alert immediately. She asked 3 questions. Was I physically safe? Did I have copies of the documents? Could I email everything now? Yes, yes, yes. She gave me a secure address and said, Miss Sloan will review immediately. Do not speak to your wife. Do not contact the firm. Do not leave the house unless necessary. Someone will call you back. I sent everything. Then I sat at the kitchen table and waited. The house felt different now. Not sad, not warm, not familiar, occupied. Like I was sitting inside a stage set after learning the walls were hollow. Elise texted twice while I waited. Please don't let other people turn this uglier than it is. Then, I never wanted to hurt you like this. I stared at both messages and locked my phone without replying. Because a person who never wanted to hurt you like this does not move $40,000 in pieces, plan a condo with another man, build a legal timeline around your blindness, and send him to your porch with papers. That is not accidental hurt. That is managed harm. At 9:26 p.m., Evelyn Sloan called me herself. Her voice was low, controlled, and so direct it almost felt physical. Mr. Mercer? Yes. I reviewed everything. No wasted words. Good. You are in a dangerous position, she said, but not a hopeless one. My grip tightened on the phone. Tell me, what I see here is an attempt to create sequence and leverage. They intended to file and frame quickly. They wanted your pain to arrive before your counsel. That line hit like a steel door closing in the right direction. She continued, your wife appears to have made premature asset transfers. Her relationship with this partner appears to overlap with his interest in the timing and presentation of the dissolution. That is, highly sensitive. Sensitive. Lawyer language. But I heard the real meaning under it. Damaging. Usable. Can she take the house? I asked. Not tonight, Sloan said flatly, and not uncontested. The air in my chest loosened for the first time all day. You are not to leave that property voluntarily, she said. You are not to send angry messages. You are not to confront the partner again. You are not to alter a single account or document. I haven't. Good. I want forensic preservation on your devices and home system first thing in the morning. Based on that email threat, I also want remote access history. I have someone for that. Finally, an adult in the room. Someone who could see the machine and knew where to jam metal into it. What about tomorrow? I asked. What happens tomorrow? I think there's a partner announcement. There was a pause. Then she said, yes, I believe so too. How? Because men like Richard Vale don't start moving this sloppily unless something public is hours away. I almost smiled. Do you want to stop it? She asked. The question hung there. Did I want to stop it? Not exactly. Stopping it would still make the whole story about their ambitions. I wanted something else. I wanted them unable to lie about what this was. I want them unable to fake the sequence, I said. Sloan was quiet for half a second. Then, good answer. She laid out the plan. At 7:15 the next morning, I would be in her office. Before that, her team would prepare an emergency response to the occupancy request, a preservation notice for financial records, and a demand concerning unauthorized access to my home systems. But that was not the part that mattered most. The part that mattered most was this. She recognized the family law attorney who had prepared Elise's filing, and she knew exactly where ethical panic would begin if certain evidence arrived before noon. especially evidence showing that a named law partner with a personal interest in the matter had privately influenced sequence and exposure strategy, not gossip, not rumor, documents, timing, their own words. The kind of truth respectable people fear most, not because it is loud, because it is undeniable. Before hanging up, Sloan said one last thing. Mr. Mercer, tonight they think you are isolated. I said nothing. By tomorrow afternoon, she said, we'll correct that misunderstanding. When the call ended, Marcus immediately called back. Well, we're not dead. That is a beautiful sentence. I laughed then. A real laugh this time, though it still felt rough around the edges. Then I told him the plan. He listened, whistled once, and said, Brother, that is not revenge. That is surgery. Good. You okay? No. But something stronger than okay had started forming in the wreckage. Direction. I will be. That night I did not sleep much. I stayed in the house, copied more records, took photos of every room, packed one bag not to leave, but in case they tried anything dramatic. Around midnight, Elise called. I let it ring. At 12:14 a.m., she texted, please answer. Richard says, this can still be contained. Contained. I stared at that word until my mouth twisted. Then I finally replied, tell Richard not to advise you through my marriage anymore. My attorney will contact yours in the morning. No insults, no threats, no shouting, just a door closing. She did not respond. At 7:15 the next morning, I was in Evelyn Sloan's office. Elise had once called her a nightmare in a nice suit. That had been accurate. Gray blazer, precise eyes, no wasted movement. The kind of woman who could ruin your month with one sentence and still sound polite. She had already printed everything, tabbed it, sequenced it, turned my worst day into a file. For the first time since the law firm lobby, that transformation did not feel dehumanizing. It felt protective. She walked me through the response. We would oppose the emergency occupancy request immediately, challenge the transfer activity, preserve digital evidence. Make clear that any continued access to my home systems or any attempt to frame me through selectively captured footage would create consequences far beyond family court. Then she slid one page toward me. A cover letter, professional, precise, devastating. It was addressed not just to Elise's counsel, but separately to counsel for Hawthorne and Vale. Not a scandal letter. Worse. A quiet notice that evidence existed, raising serious questions about inappropriate overlap between a pending partnership transition, a concealed personal relationship, and the sequencing of a marital dissolution. No theatrics, no overclaiming, just enough truth to make powerful people sweat through expensive shirts. I looked up at Sloan. When does this go out? She checked the time. 30 minutes before the announcement would likely be most educational. I sat back and let that settle into my bones. 30 minutes before the announcement. So while Richard adjusted his tie, while Elise fixed her face, while the firm prepared its polished congratulations, truth would arrive before they did. Not from me screaming in a lobby, from a legal notice they could not laugh off. That was better, much better. At 10:08 a.m., my phone rang. Elise. I looked at Sloan. She nodded once. Speaker. I answered. Her voice was different now, not polished, cracked. Daniel. I said nothing. Did you hire Evelyn Sloan? Yes. A shaky breath. You moved fast. No, I said quietly. You moved first. I just woke up. Silence. Then, you had no right to involve the firm. That almost made Sloan smile across the desk. I asked, did you have the right to involve the firm in my divorce? Elise's breathing hitched. She knew. She knew exactly what had gone out. Daniel, she said, voice lower now, you don't understand what this could do. There's that sentence again. Please, did Richard tell you to call me? Silence. Then, this isn't about him. I looked down at the evidence binder in front of me. The condo plan, the transfers, the review note, the porch camera threat. I said, that was true maybe 6 months ago. She started crying then, really crying, not the controlled shimmer she had in the elevator. For 1 second, it touched something in me. Of course it did. I had loved this woman. Love does not shut off because truth arrives. It bleeds while it leaves. She said, I didn't think it would happen like this. For the first time, I answered with full honesty. That's the problem, Elise. You thought about how it would happen for you. You never thought about what it would feel like for me, she sobbed once. Mine. Then I heard another voice in the background, a man's voice, low, urgent. Richard. I ended the call. Sloan looked at me for a long moment, then gave one small nod. Good. At 10:41 a.m., the first results came back. Not publicly, internally. A source in the downtown legal grapevine texted Sloan something short. Announcement delayed. Emergency meeting. Vale furious. When I forwarded it to Marcus, he replied in 2 seconds. Oh, now we are cooking. I laughed out loud in Sloan's office. The first clean laugh in 24 hours. It felt like getting one rib back. Then, the second result arrived at 11:18. Elise's attorney requested a pause on the occupancy request pending further discussion. Of course, because once the sequence broke, they could no longer pretend the urgency came from me. It came from exposure. By 1 o'clock, Sloan had secured an agreement that no one would remove me from the house. No additional funds would be moved, and all further contact had to go through counsel. Clean, fast, precise. Then, just when I thought the day had already said enough, my phone buzzed one more time. An email from Elise. No attorney copied, no subject line, just a few lines. Richard told me to stay quiet yesterday because the firm was finalizing the partnership vote. He said if the divorce appeared first, everything would be questioned. I told myself I was buying time. I know what that sounds like. I am sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know you were never crazy. I read it once. Then handed the phone to Sloan. She read it, looked up, and said, "Save that everywhere." I did, because sometimes the final crack in a false story does not come from force. It comes from the person who helped build it finally admitting the walls were fake. By evening, the city had moved on. Cars still rolled. Coffee still got poured. People still hurried through revolving doors. But Hawthorne and Vale did not name a lease partner that day. Richard Vale did not get his clean transition, and I did not get removed from my own home. Instead, the machine stopped. Not forever, but long enough for truth to get its shoe in the door. A week later, more facts came out, enough to stall careers. Enough to trigger internal review. Enough to make people inside that glossy law office suddenly remember exactly how often the wrong husband had been seen. Enough for whispers to stop protecting the powerful and start chasing them instead. As for Elise and me, there was no miracle. No reunion, no cinematic apology on my porch, no speech about the good years. That kind of ending belongs to people broken by life, not to people who become part of the blade. She moved out, not into my silence, into her consequences. The condo never became the clean little beginning they planned. It became timing, evidence, questions, stain. And me? I stayed in the house. The same house she had tried to turn into a weapon against me. The same porch where Richard Vale stood, thinking he was watching a controlled collapse. A month later, I replaced the front light again. Brighter this time. Warmer. Not because I had healed in some perfect movie way, but because I was done living in dim spaces, built by other people's lies. Marcus came by that evening with takeout and 2 beers. We sat on the porch steps under that new light. After a long silence, he looked at me and said, "Honest question. What? Do you regret not blowing up in the lobby?" I thought about the receptionist's face, Richard's thin smile, Elise freezing when she saw me, the lunch bag in my hand, the note inside, "Your underdressed husband." "No," I said. "Why not?" Because that was the version of me they had prepared for, the loud one, the wounded one, the man easy to frame and easier to dismiss. Instead, they got something else, a man who waited, a man who read, a man who learned the difference between pain and leverage. So I looked at Marcus and gave him the only answer that still felt true. Because they thought I'd break quietly, I said, they never imagined I'd answer carefully. And that was the part that ruined them.